In 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson vanished during a late-night phone call with his father. One final phrase, "Oh shit," and then silence. No body, no answers, just a mystery that has haunted Minnesota for over a decade.
What you are about to hear is believed to be real, based on witness accounts, testimonies, and public record. This is terrifying and true.
Marshall, Minnesota, a quiet rural town nestled in the heart of America's Midwest. On the night of May 14th, 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson vanished without a trace after his car slid into a ditch on a dark country road. Calm and composed, Brandon called his parents for help. He described his surroundings, reassured them he was okay, and began walking toward what he believed was the nearby town of Lind. Then, 47 minutes into the call, he suddenly said, "Oh shit," and the line went dead, and he was never heard from again. So make sure you're subscribed as we tell that story after this. In the early hours of May 14th, 2008, beneath the wide, silent skies of rural Minnesota, a young college student vanished without a trace. Brandon Swanson had been driving home after celebrating the end of spring semester when his car veered into a ditch on a dark gravel road. Stranded but seemingly unharmed, he called his parents for help, speaking calmly, describing his surroundings, and assuring them he would walk toward a nearby town to meet them. Then, in the middle of the conversation, Brandon suddenly uttered, "Oh shit." The line went silent. Despite extensive searches, tracking dogs, dive teams, and helicopters, no sign of Brandon was ever found. His car was intact, his phone kept ringing, and yet he was simply gone. The haunting uncertainty of that night has tormented his family and baffled investigators for over a decade. Was it a tragic accident, or did something more sinister unfold in the darkness? As the mystery endures, so do the questions. How can someone disappear while on the phone with their father? And how can so little evidence remain after so much time? Brandon Swanson was born on January 30th, 1989, in Marshall, Minnesota, to his parents Brian and Annette Swanson. He was described as a loving son, deeply cherished by his family. A native of Marshall located in Lyon County, in the southwestern region of Minnesota, Brandon grew up in a supportive environment and built strong ties with his community. In 2007, Brandon graduated from Marshall High School, marking a key milestone in his young life. With a growing interest in renewable energy, he made the decision to further his education by enrolling at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. He chose the Canby campus, where he began studying wind turbines, a field that aligned with his academic and professional goals. Brandon completed his second semester of the wind energy program in May of 2008. On May 13th, the academic year officially ended, and the students began celebrating the end of the semester. Brandon stayed in Canby that evening to spend time with his friends. The mood was festive, and although alcohol was present at the gatherings, witnesses noted that Brandon had consumed some, but not to the point of appearing visibly intoxicated. Earlier that evening, Brandon first visited a gathering in Lind, a town located about 7 miles southwest of Marshall. After spending time there, he traveled to Canby, roughly 35 miles northwest of his hometown, to join his classmates and continue the celebration. The night progressed without any known incidents, and by all accounts, things appeared to be completely normal. However, the following day, May 14th, 2008, events took a tragic and unexpected turn. As Brandon made his way back home, something happened that would leave his loved ones and the entire community searching for answers. His journey that night marked the beginning of a puzzling and heartbreaking disappearance that remains to this day unresolved. The joy of academic achievement and celebration quickly shifted into confusion and concern as Brandon's safe return never came. What should have been a simple drive home turned into a mystery that would haunt those who knew him. His absence sparked a lengthy investigation and left many wondering what could have possibly gone wrong during those early hours of May 14th. In those early morning hours, Brandon Swanson decided it was time to return home. It was sometime around 1 a.m. when he left Canby, Minnesota, where he had spent the evening with his friends. His destination was Marshall, where he lived with his parents, Brian and Annette. The drive was approximately 30 miles and took him along rural roads in southwestern Minnesota. Though it was late, Brandon appeared to be in full control of his actions and determined to get home safely. As he made his way along the gravel roads, sometime just before 2 a.m., Brandon's car went off the road and became stuck in a ditch. Rather than panicking, he reacted calmly and rationally. He picked up his phone and contacted his parents to explain the situation. Brandon told them that his Chevrolet Lumina had gone off the road and that he was unable to drive it out of the ditch. He emphasized that he was not injured and simply needed them to come and pick him up. Brian and Annette Swanson immediately got into their pickup truck and set out to find him. Throughout their drive, they stayed connected to their son by phone. Although the call occasionally dropped due to poor reception, they managed to keep in contact. Brandon remained near his car and tried to help guide them by flashing his headlights on and off. His parents attempted to do the same, hoping he would see their vehicle approaching. Despite their combined efforts, neither could see the other's lights, and it became clear that they were not in the same location. Realizing that his parents were unable to find him where he believed he was, Brandon made the decision to leave his vehicle and walk toward some lights he could see in the distance. He believed those lights were coming from the small town of Lind, located approximately 7 miles southwest of Marshall. Thinking he was close to Lind, Brandon advised his father to meet him in the parking lot of a local bar there. As Brian began heading in that direction, he remained on the phone with his son, offering support and staying close through the conversation. The call continued for 47 minutes as Brandon walked and his father drove. Then, at around 2:30 a.m., the tone of the call shifted dramatically. In the middle of their conversation, Brandon suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit." The words came out of nowhere and were followed immediately by complete silence. There were no further sounds, no signs of distress, and no background noise. His parents remained on the line, hoping to hear more, but Brandon never spoke another word. Deeply alarmed, Brian and Annette tried to call their son back multiple times, but he never answered. That brief moment of panic, the final words he uttered, would be the last time anyone heard from Brandon Swanson. His sudden silence marked the beginning of a disappearance that would puzzle everyone who dared to take a look. By the early morning of May 14th, concern had turned into alarm for Brian and Annette Swanson. After failing to reach their son following his abrupt silence during their phone call, they reported Brandon missing to the Lind Police Department at around 6:30 a.m. However, their worries were initially brushed aside. Officers told them that it was not uncommon for young adults to stay out late, especially after finishing college classes. Annette Swanson remembered a specific comment from one of the officers who stated it was Brandon's right to be missing, a response that offered little comfort to the distressed parents. Later that same morning, the Lind police did initiate a search, checking within the town and its outskirts, but they came up empty-handed. As no clues surfaced, they reached out to Lyon County Sheriff Joel Dahl for additional support. Hoping for a more precise lead, investigators obtained Brandon's cell phone records to try to identify where he had last used his phone. To everyone's surprise, the phone data revealed that Brandon had not been anywhere near Lind, where he believed he was when speaking to his father. Instead, his call had originated from an area near Taunton, a town located northwest of Marshall, along State Highway 68. This revelation changed the direction of the search entirely and redirected efforts roughly 25 miles away from where they had originally been looking. As authorities combed through the area near Taunton, they eventually found Brandon's car. The Chevrolet Lumina was discovered off a gravel road near the Lincoln County line, just north of Highway 68. At that point, Lincoln County Sheriff Jack Vizecki became involved in the investigation. He reported that the vehicle had gotten stuck on a slight rise in the terrain. Though the situation had immobilized the car, there was no visible damage to it. There were also no clear signs indicating where Brandon might have gone after abandoning the vehicle. The gravel surface and tall grass around the car did not preserve any footprints or tire marks. This left investigators with no physical evidence of which direction Brandon may have taken, adding to the complexity of the case and deepening the mystery. Further examination of cell tower data showed that Brandon's phone had connected to a tower near the intersection of County Roads 3 and 10, close to the town of Minneota. By May 15th, officials had narrowed down the phone's location to within a 5-mile radius of that tower. The search was then focused on this new area, which extended into Yellow Medicine County. As a result, law enforcement from that county also joined the investigation, further broadening the scope of the search in hopes of finding the missing young man. Sheriff Joel Dahl pointed out a critical detail about the landscape. From the area where Brandon's car was found, A red light atop a grain elevator in Taunton was clearly visible. It was speculated that this distant red light might have been what Brandon mistook for the lights of Lind, leading him to believe he was walking in the right direction. With this theory in mind, search teams concentrated their efforts near the Yellow Medicine River, which lay within the same vicinity as the final signal from Brandon's phone. The river became a primary focus for investigators, given its proximity and the possibility that Brandon might have tried to cross it or accidentally fallen in. Search crews carefully scanned the riverbanks, but nothing was found to indicate he had entered the water. The river, though active, was not especially deep at the time, and there were no traces, no items of clothing, no cell phone, and most notably, no footprints leading to or from the river's edge. Cadaver dogs were brought to the scene in hopes of detecting human remains. At one point, the dogs seemed to pick up a scent trail that led toward the river, raising hopes that this clue might lead to answers. However, despite their efforts, no body was discovered. Dive teams explored the water thoroughly, and helicopters flew overhead to cover large portions of surrounding land. Each effort was met with the same result: no evidence of Brandon's whereabouts. As the days passed, the absence of any physical evidence became even more disturbing. His family, especially Brian and Annette Swanson, continued to plead for answers, pushing for expanded search efforts and refusing to give up hope. Their son had simply vanished, and the lack of closure was taking an emotional toll. What made the situation even more baffling was the bizarre nature of Brandon's final phone call. He had been in active conversation with his father for nearly 47 minutes, guiding him toward what he believed was his location. When he made that sudden exclamation of "oh shit," the call went completely silent, and nothing more, no screams, no cries for help, and no further words. It was as if he had just vanished in an instant. This lingering question haunted everyone involved. If Brandon had fallen or encountered danger, why didn't he say anything more? He had his phone in his hand. He was in contact with someone who could have helped. The abrupt end to the call and total silence that followed only deepened the mystery. Something did not add up, and the answers remained just out of reach. In 2010, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension assumed control of the case as the lead investigative agency. A dedicated tip line was established, and by 2015, a total of 90 tips had been submitted by individuals hoping to aid the investigation. As searches resumed over time, the focus shifted northward, toward Mud Creek, a tributary of the Yellow Medicine River, situated to the north and northwest of the small town of Porter. This new search area was informed in part by canine units, which had tracked a scent trail believed to be Brandon's. One of the dogs had initially followed a trail to the Yellow Medicine River, yet continued across the water and along the opposite bank before reaching a gravel road that led further north, eventually stopping at the Yellow Medicine County line. Because of this, Annette Swanson never fully accepted the idea that her son had drowned. As she explained, quote, "There really is nothing to indicate that he's in the river." Her husband, Brian, also stood by the belief that Brandon was thinking clearly that night. Though his son had consumed alcohol earlier in the evening, Brian insisted there was no sign of disorientation, during their nearly hour-long phone call. There were alternative theories, though none offered concrete answers. While technically possible that Brandon may have chosen to vanish intentionally, his parents found the notion completely out of character for their son. On the other hand, foul play could not be dismissed, despite the absence of any direct evidence pointing to it. Sheriff Jack Vizecki admitted that it was plausible someone might have been nearby, hidden from view, and took Brandon without a trace. With no resolution in sight, Brandon's parents committed themselves to searching, year after year, revisiting the terrain and holding on to the hope that one day they might uncover the truth. Their grief, however, evolved into advocacy. The Swanson family began lobbying for legislative changes, aiming to improve the way authorities respond to missing adult cases. Annette Swanson met with Marty Seifert, who was then the minority leader of the Minnesota House of Representatives and represented the Marshall area. During their meeting at a local restaurant, Annette recounted her frustrations over the initial handling of Brandon's case. While she knew it would not change what happened to her son, she believed it could spare future families from similar pain. Seifert responded by introducing a piece of legislation known as Brandon's Law. The bill sought to amend the existing missing child program statute by replacing the word child with person, thereby extending immediate response protocols to adults as well. This legislative effort was a direct result of the Swanson family's relentless pursuit of reform, hoping that no other family would have to endure the same lack of urgency and support in their time of crisis. Yet, for all the progress and awareness they helped bring about, the Swansons continued to carry the heaviest burden: the unknown. If Brandon truly lost his life that night, why has no evidence of his remains ever surfaced? And if he survived, where did he go? And why? His case remains a haunting mystery, one that offers no clear conclusion. A capable, coherent young man was actively speaking with his father, navigating his surroundings, and then, without warning, vanished. No clues, no justice, just the enduring silence that follows someone who seemingly disappeared into thin air. In the end, Brandon Swanson's disappearance remains one of Minnesota's most haunting mysteries. Despite tireless searches, passionate advocacy, and the passage of years, the truth of what happened that night continues to elude everyone who loved him. The uncertainty has left deep scars, not only on his family, who still return to the place he was last heard, but on a community forced to live with questions that simply have no answers. Each lead that fades, every search that comes up empty, deepens the silence surrounding his case. Even as laws were changed in his name, offering hope for others, Brandon's own fate remains painfully unknown, leaving the world to wonder, how can someone vanish so completely? And will the truth ever come to light? Terrifying and True is narrated by Enrique Couto. It's executive produced by Rob Fields, Mark Shields, and Bobbletopia.com. And produced by Dan Wilder, with original theme music by Ray Mattis. If you have a story you think we should cover on Terrifying and True, send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you want to support us for as little as $1 a month, go to weeklyspooky.com/join. Your support for as little as $1 a month keeps the show going And speaking of, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay a little bit more to hear their name at the end of the show. And they are Kate and Lulu, Jessica Fuller, Johnny Nix, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Brent McCullough, Karen Ouimet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and thank you for listening. We'll see you all right here next time on Terrifying and True.